All right, the top 25 impact players from the transfer portal in the SEC have been released by 247 Sports, only 2 from South Carolina. I'm going to tell you why that is not only wrong, but it couldn't be any more wrong. Locked On Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. Hope everyone's having a fantastic Monday, as I always say, if that's even possible. And we have a good show for you today. Before we get started, I want to say thank you to everyone making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, guys, we're free and available podcasts wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. It is time for Super Bowl 59. It is Super Bowl week, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel. The FanDuel Sportsbook, new customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you will score $200 in bonus bets. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started today. All right, let's just get right into it. 247 Sports, we love them to death. They do a great job providing content all year round, but they have released something today that I have a huge bone to pick. And here's the thing. Again, they do a phenomenal job. It's the top 25 impact transfer portal players in the SEC for 2025. Now, the portal window is officially closed. No one else can enter at all. There's still players in the portal, but there's not a single player that's uncommitted that's ranked inside of the top 122 players nationally, okay? And that player is, I believe, Jonte Cook, the former receiver from Texas, who is a former 5-star. So that's where we're standing here. Now, keep in mind, the 122, that's a number I want you to remember. And we'll get to that in a second. South Carolina has already said they are going to stand pat. They are good with what they have. They're going to wait until the spring window opens for 10 days after spring games and then see if they want to explore more options. But Shane Beamer's made it clear they are done for this portal window. So most teams are the same for the SEC. They are also done and go into spring practice with what they have. 247 Sports released their top 25 impact players for that class, and there's only 2 players from South Carolina in it. It's not surprising to me at all. And listen, I say this, I feel like a lot now. You guys have kind of taught me this about South Carolina. It doesn't surprise me at all. The being overlooked or dismissed or anything, that kind of stuff, it feels like it's just such a normal, run-of-the-mill experience now with South Carolina. Happens all the time, whether it's preseason rankings, whether it's player rankings, whatever. So that part doesn't surprise me. What surprises me is this. At some point, you're going to need to factor in if Shane Beamer and his staff have identified this player and evaluated this player as somebody they want to bring in, maybe that means a little something. Like, we give the benefit of the doubt all the time to Bama recruits, Georgia recruits, places like that, where you'll see a kid who's, a 3-star, they sign with them, all of a sudden, whoa, what do you know? They're a 4-star. I'm not saying that necessarily needs to be the case with somebody that Shane Beamer identifies, but we have talked about this before. His track record and his staff's track record of identifying talent that is often overlooked and then evaluating that talent, then developing that talent, really has been second to none in the SEC. You can talk all you want about Lane Kiffin bringing in all these players and how good of a job he has done bringing in all these players. Self-appointed portal king. That's awesome. Good for you, Lane. Fantastic job. When you talk about developing those players, that's a whole different story. Who's the best player from the portal that Kiffin has developed? Jackson Dart was an Elite 11 top 5 recruit or top 6 recruit in the country at his position out of high school. Now, he did really well when he came to Ole Miss, no doubt about it. Walter Nolan, that's the one that stands out to me because he transferred from A&M and will be a first-round pick. He was the number 1 overall player in the country coming out of high school. So what Beamer and his staff have done a really good job of is identifying talent, seeing where it fits, and then going from there. I want you to think about last year's team and the impact players that you had. I would argue that the 5 biggest impact players on that team were this: Lenora Sellers, Kyle Kennard, Nick Emanwari, Rocket Sanders. You could probably throw Dylan Stewart in there. right? I would probably put him maybe at 5, but for the sake of my own argument, I'm going to put him narrative. Demetrius Knight Jr. In terms of like the immediate impact, we all thought Debo Williams was going to be like the guy at linebacker. It really was Demetrius Knight Jr. So what do those players have in common? Well, 3 of the 5 came in from the portal. I'm looking at the top 25 players, and it's kind of what you would expect near the top. It's a former 5-star off the edge that went to LSU. Patrick Payton is number 1. Eric Singleton, who's like a number 2 or 3 player in the portal overall, who went to Auburn. He's number 2. Jackson Arnold, quarterback at Auburn, he's at 3. He will have a big impact because he is most likely going to be the starter. So I get that. John Mateer, kid going to Oklahoma out of Washington State. He's at number 4. Personally, I think he will have the biggest impact of any player in the SEC next year. Then it's Nick Anderson, a receiver, blah, blah, blah. It's all these names that are former big recruits, players that have put up a lot of production already. That's who's at the top of the list. There's only 2 South Carolina players that are even listed in the entire rankings. And it's number 19, Brandon Siss, the cornerback they got from NC State. And then at 21, it's a running back Faison from Utah State. So 2 players in the top 25. It frustrates me, even though it shouldn't, because all you have to do is look at the track record just a season ago. Never mind what happened with Spencer Rattler when he was here, right? Like, just go a season ago and look at where these players are ranked. I'm looking at the top overall players and transfers from last year's transfer portal class overall, okay? And the first South Carolina player listed is at 52, and it's Rocket Sanders. The second is at 94, and it's Demetrius Knight Jr. The third is at 122 in the country, and it's Kyle Kennard. So, as much as it frustrates me to look at these lists over and over again, you're like, oh, yeah, like scanning for it and trying to find exactly what the first time I see Gamecocks, South Carolina, USC, whatever. And you have to scroll all the way down to 19 before you see the first player that'll be an impact. It's wrong. They're wrong. Like love what they do. 247 does a fantastic job. They're wrong. They're wrong about this. We'll see how it all plays out. But I would be willing to bet, if you're going to tell me that in the past 2 years of players that have come to the program and left the program, Spencer Rattler was a pretty big impact player, right, for this team. Again, the first quarterback drafted in 34 years. Kyle Kennard ended up being one of the best players in the country, if not the best player in the country on defense for this team last year. He was 122nd in the portal a year ago. So from just a track record alone, I feel like South Carolina is going to have more than 2 impact guys that are the top 25 in the SEC. Something tells me they'll probably have at least one in the top 10. And it also tells me that maybe, just maybe, in year 5 of the Shane Beamer era, it might be time to start giving him and this staff credit into saying, you know what, if Beamer sees something, maybe we missed something, and then go from there. All right, that is all for the first part of the show. We will continue on with more talk about recruiting. The signing day comes up on Wednesday. There's also some news and notes and other things that we're going to discuss from the basketball standpoint. AJ Wilson got her number retired. That was pretty great from a fun weekend. But before we get into any of that, I do want to say one more quick thing about our friends over here at FanDuel. Now, listen, you guys have heard me talk about this on countless occasions, and it gets me very excited to talk about Super Bowl prop bets during Super Bowl week. I was looking through some of these today, specifically because of our friends at FanDuel. Okay, and there's no better time than right now to get on board and sign up for FanDuel. For a limited time, Super Bowl 59, it's Super Bowl week. If you sign up as a new customer and you make your first $5 bet, you will get $200 back in free bonus bets. I can tell you how to spend that $200 or how to even win it with the first $5 bet, but make sure you are signing up today. Now, listen, like I said, with the Super Bowl, there's a bazillion things and endless possibilities to keep the game going. And it's not just, with the game, the outcome, the winner, the loser, any of that kind of stuff. You can bet on such things okay, as player props, game props, what color, what the coin flip will be, heads or tails, what color the Gatorade bath will be for whoever wins. You can even bet, and this is the lock of the year. I want you to listen up right now. I was going to wait till later in the week to release this, but it's the lock of the year. You can bet on whether or not they will show a Tom Brady Super Bowl highlight during this game. In this game, it's minus 200 right now on FanDuel. Tom Brady is announcing the game. If you don't think they're going to show at least one replay or highlight from his 6 or 7 Super Bowls, whatever it is, I mean, I would be shocked. So make sure you go to FanDuel today. Make sure you sign up. Download the app, okay? And also, you have the live betting feature now, which lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field. And the app is super easy to navigate. Cannot say it enough. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, we will be right back with more Locked On Gamecocks. All right, welcome back in to Locked On Gamecocks. So Wednesday is signing day, and there's few things that are more confusing and I feel like disappointing to me in the world of college football now than and like I'm going to date myself here, but a lot of you who kept up with recruiting for a really long time, you'll probably remember this as well. Like the first Wednesday of February was signing day forever, and this year it will still be signing day, but it just is not anywhere close to what it was before. I talked about this before, the early signing day and early signing period. Everything has just been moved up in the calendar. And like, I'm sure there's reasoning why, right? Like I can't really wrap my head around like a lot of these players, the goal is to just get on campus and get developed and start getting into their college careers as earlier and earlier. We see like early enrollees, right? Like Jake Bentley was like ahead of his time when he did it, right? We all heard the thing 1,000 times an episode or a game where it's like, he's still supposed to be at his high school prom this week and blah, blah, blah. Like he's still supposed to be a senior in high school. Like that was like a novelty back then. Now it's just the norm. And it's weird because we talked about this before, like, but I think all but 3 of the players in Carolina's class a season ago were on campus early. I think all but 5 this year are on campus early. And that's what every place is doing. It's not just Carolina. So it's just like become the norm, like I said. But it sucks a little bit because I used to really enjoy early, just really enjoy signing day because it was only one. And like I said, we've seen that just over time. I think I've even said the stat before. The first year of early signing day, December, out of the top 100 players, you had 79 that signed early. The next year was 85. The following year was 93, and it was 97 this year. So that's out of the top 100 players overall. But you've seen it to where it's like 79% signed early, all the way up now to 97% of the top 100 players. So nothing that's super edge of your seat, exciting. Like it is very much so like Shane Beamer and company are done with this year's recruiting class for 2025. The hay is in the barn, all that kind of stuff. You're going to start shifting ahead to next year. Now, some storylines to keep in mind for next year. South Carolina is involved as a finalist for 2 of the top prospects that are still on the board. Now, there's a lot of people that are uncommitted, but from the quarterback position, which will always be the most important position, there's 2 specifically to follow here. And one is Jared Curtis, who's the number 1 quarterback in the country. He's the number 7 player overall, kid out of Nashville, Tennessee, looks the part. He is really, he's got offers from everywhere in the country, right? I think he recently released his final 5 or 6. South Carolina made the cut. They're going to get an official. And Shane Beamer and Seth, they just visited. I think it was either last week or the week before for an in-home. Auburn did as well. Auburn secured an official visit for him. And he is very much there. South Carolina is very much in the mix for him. The other one is a former commit, Landon Duckworth. It's a kid from Fairhope, Alabama. There's a bumper crop of recruits coming out of Alabama the last 2 cycles. I don't know what's going on. Last year was famously like an oversaturated like number of elite recruits. They had 11 in the top 247 nationally. They had 11 from the state of Alabama. Auburn got like I think 8 out of the top 10 or 9 out of the top 10. This upcoming year, there's 13. Landon Duckworth is in that. He was committed to South Carolina, I believe, a while ago, backed off his commitment. Now he's reopened it, but Shane Beamer and staff have again made it clear like they want to very much be involved and make him a priority and land a quarterback in one of those classes. Here's the thing, too. You have Lenoris, and like depending on his year, you need to start coming to grips with maybe Lenoris Sellers is gone to the NFL after next year. That is a very, very real possibility. Now you have Aaron Nolan behind him, right? Kid you brought up from Ohio State, huge get. So you have the QB of the future. That's a former 5-star, like Elite 11, like really kid signed with Ohio State out of high school. Local kid, I mean, like I said, like SEC kid is a kid out of I forgot the high school name, but it's from a kid from Georgia. So a kid from the Southeast. You're going to sign a quarterback in every class. There's bottom line. There's going to very rarely will you ever not take a quarterback for any school, but especially here with what South Carolina's building. If Jared Curtis is on the board, you absolutely take Jared Curtis no matter what you have in place. Absolutely. The number 1 overall quarterback in the country. That's not somebody, if they're interested in you, that you're ever going to back off of. And South Carolina is in good standing with him from what you can gather. The situation with Landon Duckworth is also interesting because it's a kid at 6'3", 190 that feels like he can develop and grow into his body. He's not going to have the size of Lenoris in terms of like physical like strength. Obviously, he's like 50 pounds lighter, but he has the body that you want from an ideal type of quarterback that he's going to be able to put on 20, 30 pounds in college, get to 6'3", 6'4", 220, and all that kind of stuff. He, from like the crystal ball predictions, right? It's more of a lean to UCF right now, which is shocking to me, and maybe it shouldn't be, but like with the coaching turnover they have, like I think his reasoning behind it was that he backed off his commitment to South Carolina because of the coaching turnover, and I'm assuming with Dowell Loggins going to App State. App State obviously now has an offer for him, so we'll see where that goes. But UCF is now the favorite. I think I say all that to say there's going to be a lot of players in this class. It's an interesting class as of right now. They have not redone the 2025 recruiting class rankings, and they have not, or I'm sorry, 2026, and they have not done the reevaluation to figure out the 4-stars. Now, remember last year I told you they had a record number of 4-stars and blue chip recruits. So it's a 4 or 5-star recruit. They had a record number of that from 247 Sports. They had 400 total. This is a big thing that we have talked about a bunch with putting up a fence around the state and making sure that the kids in South Carolina are welcome home and stay home, right? Welcome home and stay home. As of right now, there's only 2 4-star players in the state of South Carolina. I expect that to grow. South Carolina has the number 1 overall player in the country or in the state, an edge rusher who's also, I think, number 92 nationally. So it's a top 100 guy, like a good prospect. And what they're building off the edge is really, really exciting. Like with Dylan Stewart, with the Darden kid coming in this year, and I mean just from a recruiting standpoint, what they're able to recruit at that position is very exciting. But it'll be interesting to see how many total 4-stars are in this state, because I think that you've starting to see like a shift in tides of where the home state favorite is. And Clemson has not done a really good job under Dabo of recruiting and making that in-state talent a priority. But Beamer obviously has. So we'll see. But again, I think as of right now, the 2 big names, it's only 2 uncommitted quarterback prospects as of today, and you're in the running for both of them. So I will also tell you this right now. If you don't land them, I don't think it's an end-of-the-world situation. You're still in very, very good standing. You're still in very, very good standing. Like the idea of even if Lenoris is gone after next year. Now, you think about this. Excuse me. If Lenoris is gone, pardon me. If Lenoris is gone after next year, that means that most likely he had such a great year, that's what vaulted him into that position. So now like you would have to assume that he would have like that. His success translates into a lot of on-field success for South Carolina as well. Aaron Nolan coming in, that would be year 3 in college for Aaron Nolan, so he would at least have a lot of like valuable like he would be a veteran at that point in terms of college football, right? He'd be an upperclassman going into year 3, even though he'd probably only be a redshirt freshman, redshirt sophomore, whatever. Now, you're in the mix for both those players that we just mentioned with Landon Duckworth and Jared Curtis. If you don't land them, it is not the end of the world. But if you did, if you can go get Jared Curtis, especially, the trickle-down effect of getting a top quarterback like that, that would be very, very big for recruiting. So that is all for today's episode. I hope everyone had a fantastic Monday, like I said. And then we will get into more stuff this week. Like I said, we're working on a couple of interviews, trying to bring on a staffer this week. We're also going to talk to some guys that were down at the Senior Bowl as well with some South Carolina ties. I don't want to give away too much too soon. But make sure you are listening to Locked On Gamecocks each and every day. Again, shout out to our everydayers. For your second listen, go give Barrett Sallee or Chris Gordy a try. You know what? This week, why don't we say go give Barrett Sallee a try? He's having a really tough day, really tough week. He's been locked out of his Twitter account like 17 times in the last 2 weeks. I can personally feel for that. So go give Locked On Covered and Smothered and Covered, whichever one it is, a listen as well. Until next time, y'all have a great day. Go Cox.